Now, from Wichita's most listened to sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH. This is Sports Daily with Jacob Albracht and Tommy Castor.
All right, welcome in, everybody, to Sports Daily. Jacob Albracht here alongside Tommy Castor. We have an exciting Tuesday edition for you. Jad Chambers is here, manning that IHOP hotline, brought to you by IHOP, 869-1240. Joining us in just a minute or so on that IHOP hotline, Wichita State head men's basketball coach Paul Mills. Excited for that conversation. Catch up as summer workouts begin. We'll do that. We'll talk a little Royals today. We've got some text giveaways today. Both for some HTO and a Nick Swardson show, so make sure you stay tuned for your opportunity to win there. All kinds of good stuff to come to get to, but we will start with basketball in just a second. Tommy, how are you this morning?
Man, I'm good. Good to be here this morning. Looking forward to jumping right in. I know we've got a busy day, so I'm looking forward to it.
It's always a busy day here on Sports Daily. We're glad you're listening to us. We're glad you're watching us on our video stream. You can do that, of course, on Facebook, on YouTube, on X. You can find that. Just search for KFH, kfhradio.com. If you want to listen to the live stream, if you got to pop out of your car mid-interview here, because joining us now right off the top of the show, always good to catch up with Wichita State men's basketball coach Paul Mills. Coach, how are you this morning?
I'm great. Jacob, Tommy, thanks for having me.
We're excited. We're excited for summer basketball. We're excited to learn a little bit about this group coming in. This is the world of the transfer portal in college basketball, which means we get a crash course. I imagine you get a crash course with a whole bunch of new players. Now, give us the schedule. I know you guys practice this week. When did summer work begin, and how long do you have for it?
Yeah, yesterday, and all of the new guys are here. We'll have two more additions to our roster that are not here yet that we haven't announced, but the 13 of the 15 are here and get started. Obviously, when they first show up, it's physicals and paperwork and blood test and things of that nature. But we'll actually get on the court here shortly.
Coach, I know that it's kind of like a chess game during the offseason when you're trying to put together the pieces of a team and figuring out the transfer portal and who's leaving, who's coming in, all of that. For you, as you've gone through this offseason, what did you prioritize? What were some of the most important traits or attributes that you were looking for in players to come in and join the Shockers?
Well, first, I think retention's the name of the game. I mean, you have to be able to keep the players that you believe in and want to be Shockers and want to be a part of what's happening here. And so the ability to have 5 of your top 7 players from a year ago return helps. It helps your culture. It helps your locker room. It helps stability. It helps in execution offensively and defensively simply because they're familiar with terminology. And anytime you're at the same place over the course of time, you're going to make strides simply because you have people who are experienced and understand the vernacular in which you're speaking of. It's also retention from a coaching standpoint. I mean, we're blessed to have everybody from our coaching staff who was here last year, be back again this year. So I think the continuity is going to pay huge dividends. In regards to, we needed some backcourt help. We weren't very good in regards to turning it over and shooting the basketball. So we needed help in both of those areas. And we were able to accomplish that. And now we'll finish up our front court with 2 announcements here shortly. But you go back to attributes. What I find is good people make good players. You find that the people that want to do the right things, care about doing the right things on and off the court, that usually translates to being a really good basketball player over the course of time. And what I would tell you is the other attribute is, do they really love basketball? I think a lot of people like basketball. But if you can find players who are consumed with it and really want to get the most out of their God-given abilities, I think you're on the right track.
Coach, I'm going to do my best to give us a quick recap. So, Ballard, Beverly, Bell, Cortez, DeGray are back of the guys you mentioned that were key contributors. And then Joy comes back, Giannis Bamba comes back, and you bring in a couple of freshmen, highly touted freshmen, Zion Pipkin and TJ Williams. Of course, people around here know about TJ Williams in his time at Heights, and then transferring in Justin Hill and AJ McGinnis. So I guess my question with all of that is, of the 4 new guys that we do know about, and you mentioned there are 2 others, but of the 4 that we do know about, are you expecting right away immediate contributions? And if so, like what does that group help you guys gain that you didn't have last year or lose in the guys that are not with the program this year?
Yeah, I will tell you that. Let me start with the transfers. Justin Hill averaged 10 points a game at Georgia, was 3rd in the SEC in assist. But I think the thing that doesn't get mentioned is you have a guy who's experienced, who's done it at a really high level in the SEC, but he only has a 15% turnover rate, and then he's 92nd percentile in catch and shoot. So you have a guy who has the ability to make catch and shoot shots from the perimeter, who's already proven himself as a passer and a scorer, but more importantly, as a ball protector. Like, you're going to get tremendous value out of those possessions. And he's demonstrated an ability to make catch and shoot shots. The other thing is AJ McGinnis was a 40% three-point shooter. He has good size. He, too, is an experienced player. The other guy who you didn't mention, Corey Washington, is a transfer from St. Peter's, who was an all-conference player there at St. Peter's and led them to the tournament this year, was their leading scorer and rebounder for a very good team that went on to play Tennessee in the opening round. And so I thought that we addressed a number of needs from shooting and ball security with the additions in the transfer portal. Zion Pipkin is out of Houston, is a point guard. Has done a tremendous job, ultra competitive, what you look for out of guys in a lead guard position. And then people are familiar with TJ and his ability to lead Heights, Kansas Basketball Player of the Year, and able to get to the state championship game. But all of that being said, the transition's probably a little bit easier for guys who are experienced, and Justin and AJ are in their last year of college basketball. And then you have Corey Washington, who's played 2 years at St. Peter's and has been a leader there. So all of that bodes well. Freshmen are trying to figure out what you're actually like. I didn't even know that was a term. When you start talking, hey, outer third, middle third, they ask sometimes, what am I, in math class? And so I think a lot of times those guys will get it's like drinking out of a fire hydrant for those guys early on. But you have guys who are really comfortable, and like I said, we're excited. It's almost to use a football approach. This is like spring football for us. And there's a lot of introduction, but when you have the pieces returning that you do, you feel really good about the direction.
You mentioned both, obviously, Justin Hill and Corey Washington. How important is it, for the experience that those guys bring? And when you're talking about, like, Justin Hill, for example, playing in a conference like the SEC with Georgia before, or with Corey Washington playing in an NCAA tournament, bringing sort of that background that both of those guys have to a program like Wichita State, is that something that you can lean on where, they can say, look, this is what I've experienced, and, the kinds of competition and that sort of thing that they can then bring to the rest of the players on the team?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have to have guys who understand where you're trying to get to. And for players who have experienced the NCAA tournament, they get it. They know what Selection Sunday is like. For players who haven't, they don't really understand that. And so I think when you have players who, like, this is how we get to where every team in the country is trying to go. And then you also have players who cut down nets, and they know what it's like to win championships, because at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to win a conference championship. And we know if we do that, that's going to put us in the NCAA tournament. So you want players, and Corey fortunately has done that. And so when you have guys who've done that, who've experienced it, they understand where they're at, but they also understand where we're trying to get to. And as a coach, your job is to set a vision, a vision individually and collectively. And so when you have players who've been there and they've been down that road, and some people this is a foreign concept to. They don't really understand what you're talking about. Fortunately, us as coaches, we've all experienced it. We've seen what it's like. We know what winning in March looks like. But for players, for guys who've actually tasted it, it translates sometimes a little bit better. And that's the value of having the Ronnie DeGrays, Quincy Ballards, who've been there. Harlan Beverly obviously played in the Final Four. Guys understand exactly what you're talking about, but more importantly, they understand the work that's required in order to make that dream a reality.
Wichita State head men's basketball coach Paul Mills, fan of the second best pro baseball team in Texas, joining us right now on Sports Daily. Love having Coach Mills in here to
They're
catch up on the
they're not doing as well this year.
They're doing better than my Rangers right now, but it's a marathon, not a sprint. We all know that. Defending champs got to have a chance. Coach Mills is an Astros fan. We won't hold that against him here on this show, or maybe
Thank
we will.
you.
Coach, you're about 15 months into the job, and I always wonder, like, what has been maybe both positive and maybe a little more difficult to answer negative, but like, what has surprised you the most now? You've had a full rotation in this thing about being the head coach of the Shockers.
Yeah, I'm not really surprised, and I don't say that arrogantly. I say that in a way that I think you're just so focused on whatever the daily activity is, and you're just pushing forward. And I think one day you'll get a chance to reflect and say, you know what, I wasn't prepared for this, or this one caught me a little bit off guard. But I will tell you that it's been very educational for me, just going through the conference, seeing the caliber of player that's required in order to win it, to understand some of the nuances that are out there in order to really put your team in a position. And we all understand NIL. And people are familiar with that, but there's so many other things that play a huge part in moving this program forward. So I think that you kind of delve into a little bit more maybe than other things. And so I think now, having gone through it, you understand the players on your team. I mean, I could come into a situation and stop me if I've said this before, but when you first take over a job, you walk into the locker room and you say, hey, how many of you guys are staying? And 7 hands go up. And you have to go get 6 guys in order to complement the 7. But the reality is you don't really know those 7. You've seen them on film, but you don't know who they are and you don't understand what they're about. So I think after a year, you understand better who is in your locker room, but you also understand what it's going to take in order to make sure that we're positioning ourselves in order to win a championship. So it's been very, very educational to me. And I'm just so consumed with this is what's got to get done today. And the old adage of let's just stack days, but let's be locked in on winning today. These are the things I need to do in order to win today. We talk a lot about this. How do we go 1-0 here? And so my goal at the end of the day is just how do I go 1-0 today? And in order to go 1-0, these are the things that need to get accomplished. So I think we're just so focused in on the daily activity in order to move this program forward.
Coach, you mentioned positioning yourselves to win a championship, and I'm sure that you can't comment on this specifically. So generally, I'll just ask, when it comes to holiday tournaments and non-conference and that sort of thing, there was some news yesterday about the potential and what that might look like for Wichita State. But generally speaking, when it comes to playing in those early season holiday tournaments, I know a lot of coaches and a lot of programs like doing that because it gives you, really tough, high-level competition early on in the season, and you get an opportunity to really kind of see where your team is at the very outset of the season. So generally speaking, regardless what ends up happening with the Shockers for this upcoming season, what's your take on early season holiday tournaments and the importance that it can build for your team and moving forward once you get into conference play?
Yeah, I'm familiar with the report yesterday by Taylor of us being able to be in the Orlando NTE, the ESPN event, playing Minnesota, Wake Forest, and Florida in that 4-team quad. And so I'm excited about it. I think everybody has to assess where their team is at. I mean, we have a pretty good idea just about how we stack up. There are, if you've ever seen the movie Moneyball, there is plenty of software out there from a basketball standpoint that shoots out algorithms on where you're projected to be. And based upon your current lineup and what they've done in the past, this is where we anticipate you being. So we understand where we're at, especially where we think we're going to be at. Well, we'll get more of an idea, obviously, through the summer months in the next 2 months as we work out. But I'm excited about being able to test ourselves early against good competition on neutral courts. And we're not done with our schedule. We're close to having it complete, but I think these tournaments provide really good insight. And again, they prepare you for what you're going to face in conference. So to be able to play teams that you anticipate are going to be good on neutral courts in those kind of situations, it's a win-win for everybody involved, in my opinion.
Where those algorithms have the Shockers next year? Do you have any of those?
Yeah, I mean, it depends which software you want to look at. I like the ones that have us at the top. So
right.
I think most people will have UAB Memphis. If you look at it simply because UAB is returning Yaxel, who's probably going to end up being Player of the Year preseason, and then you have Memphis who's added a number of pieces. And then if you start to look at it, you'll see the Shockers in there toward the top. And again, this has a lot to do with the ability to retain good players.
And we've got just a couple of minutes here with Coach Mills, and I want to ask you about your basketball camp. But on that, with the projections and everything, it really felt like, and I'm sure as you guys have had the dust settle and everything else, 5-13 could have been a whole lot more like 13-5, right? With just a little bit more consistency. So how do you capture that now with new players? It felt like there were a lot of opportunities and close opportunities to get over the hump and sort of flip those standings upside down, just for the Shockers specifically. But did it feel that way to you guys? And can you use that now in these early work to let the guys know, hey, we're close?
Yeah, I go back. You lose a buzzer beater at Memphis after being up with 5 minutes to play and weren't able to convert some plays down the stretch, whether that be shots around the rim or some free throw opportunities. You go back to the Florida Atlantic game here and the Temple game here. Both ended up being overtime losses, but you had plenty of opportunities, and I think again, those are wonderful learning experiences. I don't want to get into all of the algorithms that we look at it, but if you look at last year's roster, the algorithms told us that we would only win 5 games in conference. And at the end of the year, I said, dang it, I hate this stupid software. I can't believe it's this accurate. And so obviously the software doesn't tell us that moving forward, but you get a lot regardless of whatever the software says. You get a lot just out of those experiences, and you realize that, man, if we can convert some of these opportunities, we weren't very good at the free throw line last year. And we've been able to, not only through recruiting, address some of those needs, but we've been able to address some of that in individual development. So I think all of that plays a part in moving forward and winning close games. But I will tell you, the value of possessions, not turning the ball over, and conversion at the free throw line plays huge dividends in the ability to win close games. And I think we've addressed both of those.
Head coach Paul Mills, Wichita State men's basketball. You guys have a camp, coach. It's June 10 to 13. What do people know to get in on those camps?
Next week, start at 8:30 and have a younger session. I enjoy it. In fact, our guys will tell you that I reference it a lot, that if you ever watch third graders, it is Tommy has the ball and everybody runs toward him and everybody yells, Tommy, Tommy, Tommy. And I talk to the team about the spacing just doesn't look very good. And third grade basketball, sometimes you have to teach them. And sometimes we look like that. And so I'll pull out the camp film and show them what it looks like. I absolutely enjoy all of the younger kids and just guys who are enthusiastic about basketball. And I hope we can add to some of their enthusiasm.
I'll need some point. I coached third grade girls basketball, and all I could tell them is if you got 5 fouls, if you don't use 3 of them, you're not trying hard enough. They didn't quite understand that. So I may need a little help on that. But that camp,
I gave my daughter, we made trips to Andy's for every 50-50 ball she got. So if you can usually bribe young ladies, it was my experience with ice cream.
We bribed with treats for rebounds. That's what we did.
I like it.
So I'm glad I'm on the right track. Okay. Coach, we appreciate it. We'll do this again this summer. Get a look at those guys and get us updated on how things are looking. We appreciate it. That camp, June 10th through 13th. Check it out. Head coach Paul Mills, we appreciate the time. Good workout today. You guys stay healthy.
Thank you.
Yep.
There goes Coach. He's got to work out in about 5 minutes. We can't. We really appreciate. Can't say how much we appreciate jumping in. We got to do that more this summer. Because we've got new players to learn. I think it's fascinating on the, on numbers games and spitting out that information. If you don't know Coach Mills, you don't know, but he is an information guy. And so, taking all that in and learning those expectations. Well, let's talk about that when we come back, just sort of expectations from the outside. Because we really haven't dove in now that it looks like the roster is more or less complete. We can do that. If you missed any of that interview, you can go back and listen to it on kfhradio.com. Chad will get that podcasted out quicker. You can go and watch the video stream of it, Facebook, YouTube, X. You can go back and watch that. Tune in for the rest of the show. We'll have text opportunities to win contests. We'll do it all as we make our way through a busy Tuesday here on Sports Daily.
Sometimes people tell us, but let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With more than 25 flavors, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day for half-price cups of tea. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out why we say drink tea, be happy.
have more than 25 flavors. Come try them all for free.
All right, our thanks to Wichita State head coach Paul Mills. Nice way to come out of the gates here on the show and appreciate the time taken there as they're practicing like right now. I know that he was going to hop on with us right before they actually got to work. So, you know, we really appreciate taking that time and the availability that, you know, that's not always there. And that stuff matters, I think, and it matters to creating the buzz. So especially when you have as many new faces as you do. And I'd say this, like, it's not, you know, you're going to go to the sites and you're going to look at it and it'll be like, well, what in the world? But I don't, Tommy, look at it that way. I think we're pretty honest about the transfer portal here. Like when we haven't seen players, we're not going to pretend like we're going to evaluate them into the portal. You know, you get a luxury sometimes with KU when you've seen some of these guys that are transferring in. So you do have some thoughts. But, you know, for most programs, you're not going to have that. And so for the Shockers, it's like, for me, I just kind of look at it like I lean on the ranking sites, and they're not always right, but they give it their best shot. I lean on them. And then I like to just sort of compare it to what we've seen recently. And I would say that this group coming in versus the other groups coming in from the portal era appears to be as talented or more, Tommy, than any of the ones we've seen. You're looking at, you know, in TJ Williams and Zion Pipkin, those at times have been top 150 players. They're in that range. And that's the type of incoming freshman that the Shockers have always thrived with. And then you've got some transfers coming in that, you know, on paper, I would say, and we didn't have a chance to ask Coach Mills about this, and I don't think he has had a chance to even look at it. I would say outside of shooting on paper, right? Just shot makers, 3-point shot makers, I should say, not creators. I think he brought in some creators. I just mean outside shooters. I think it looks probably in better shape, if we're being honest with our lack of knowledge each year going into a year, than it has before. And so what does that mean? I don't know. That's what the summer work and everything else tells you. But you have to get to that point and see these players. But you hated losing Colby Rogers. That one stung. And you certainly hated to see where he went. But let's not pretend like these incoming Shocker classes the last 3 or 4 years have been full of, very obvious rating sites all love them, but a lot of these guys have thrived. So really it just comes down to, what do they do when they get here more than what have they done before they got here? I think this is a group that's as good as any in the transfer portal era for Wichita State. What does that mean on the court? I don't know. And I don't know how to really gauge a realistic look at it. I know what we want them to do, and I know what the intangible, this is what they need to achieve this year for it to be perceived as a success, but I don't know what's reality. I would say they need to be, somewhere in the top 5 this year at minimum, for sure, in the conference for us to feel good about things. But I don't know what the reality is with roster versus, and I definitely don't know what the other teams have done outside of Memphis. You know what I mean? I mean, give me a break. If somebody is keeping up with the roster rotations of the American Athletic Conference, we got to talk, because I don't know what the other teams are doing either. But I would say top 5 is reasonable going into the year. I think we'd like to see it even higher than that. I think the tournament feels like it should be. I mean, we should be there, right? Wichita State needs to be in the tournament, so we'll see. But it's a group I think that looks decent on paper.
Well, first off, as far as three-point shooting is concerned, it's not a ridiculously high bar to overcome anyway.
Right.
So
historically now for a lot of years.
Yeah. So saying that it should be improved or that was a priority, I don't think that that's out of line, because it really hasn't been anything incredible in a while now. And that includes last season. So I think if they can find a way to get that, bumped up a little bit and get that three-point shooting percentage even up a couple of percentage points from last year to this year. I mean, that bar was not set very high for the Shockers to overcome that this season. My question to Coach about the experience, I think, is, at least for me, one of the most important things. And I'm not talking about experience playing basketball. I'm talking about winning experience or championship level experience. And I look at a guy like Corey Washington that played for St. Peter, and they made it to the NCAA tournament, and had a little bit of a run. And they, he's got that experience on the biggest stage, albeit as a Cinderella type player and type team with St. Peter's, but still he's been there. He knows what that is like. He can speak to that with the other players on the team. I do think that that's important, because if you look at the roster and you look at what, the talent coming in, and you compare that with the guys that have been on that team. I mean, look at, a guy like Xavier Bell, or look at a guy like, Quincy Ballard, or somebody that's been with the program for a couple of years. It hasn't always been easy for them. There's been turnover and transition and losing games and, frustrations and that sort of thing. So if you can have kind of that winning mentality coming in from a guy like Corey Washington, who's been at the largest stage and played in the NCAA tournament, I do think that helps. And even a guy like Justin Hill, who played for Georgia, he can speak to, okay, I played in the SEC. I played at a major conference. Here is some of the things that I have experienced. And it is a little bit different, I think, than a couple of the guys that were brought in last season that also had major conference experience, in Bijan Cortez and Ronnie DeGray, where those guys weren't really getting a ton of play at their previous schools, where Justin Hill did. And so I think that being able to have that level of major conference play experience and championship experience, I think that is going to be really important for Wichita State.
It is. And it is impossible to sit here now and guess at what I don't, I think there are different levels of this when we look at the transfer portal. You can look at the biggest programs and the programs where they're just sort of exchanging top players now and get a pretty good idea, I think, of expectations, right? KU is going to be most likely ranked number 1, if not, at worst in the top 3 next year, because we know what a lot of the players they brought in have done in the past. We know a lot about what they have coming back. Kansas State, maybe a rung below that, but we feel pretty good about the players that they've brought in, right? Because we've known a little bit more about those players. We've seen them. there's not a lot of people that have seen St. Peter's play basketball, and that's okay. Now, does that mean it's going to reach expectation every time? Of course it doesn't. KU last year, everything unraveled, right? What we thought was going to be great, it took an off-the-court situation and one of those transfers not playing well to everything falling apart. So we can sit here with and I do think, by the way, expectations are very, very, very important. And I think they're important for the buzz of a program. And I think they're important to filling up an arena. And I think they're important to evaluating the success of a season. I'm not saying they're not important. I'm saying they've never been harder to come up with, especially for Wichita State in recent years. We just don't know a lot about the players coming in. And the one thing I think we look at this roster and look at and say, well, there's two things. We mentioned it: 3-point shooting and then depth down low, right? Love Quincy Ballard, love his upside. I think everybody would tell you that. But now what's behind him a little bit? How do they spell his minutes? Who's coming in? And I'm pretty certain that the two players Coach Mills was talking about that have not been announced or anything are going to help there. But I don't know how talented these guys are, right? Just because you're a certain size doesn't mean anything. So how do you evaluate expectations? I think at the base level for Wichita State, you always need to be in the top half of the American. I don't care what the roster looks like. That's where an expectation always has to start. We talked about the urgency of how quickly Paul Mills needs to win at Wichita State, and you just look at the arena and you can understand why we said that, right? You got to keep the buzz going. You got to fill up that arena. Shocker basketball has to get back to where it was. You ain't going to do that unless you're up near the top of the league, making the NCAA tournament. So, I think the foundation of it, the characteristics that they're trying to bring in, I think they're accomplishing a lot there, but now you got to win games. And I think this group can. I think they were so close in so many, and it was frustrating. Look, it's not making an excuse. It was at times infuriating that they weren't finishing these games. So, how much could be gained if they just were better at that last year? Probably a whole lot, by the way. But I don't think there's anybody who watched Shockers and didn't think they could hang with any team in the league last year. That's a decent starting point. But now you got to finish those games.
I mean, the concern, though, with that is that a lot of those games, Colby Rogers was the linchpin in, and you don't have him, this year. So you've got to replace at least that production in a variety of different ways.
We worry about that every year, though. Don't you think sometimes that will solve itself? Like, there's always going to have to be somebody that is going to step in and need to take on that bigger shot-making role.
That's what, remember, it was Jaquan Walton a couple of years ago that, kind of burst onto the scene and then, right? Transferred out. And you're like, oh, how are you going to replace that production? And then Colby Rogers stepped in. I mean, and I'm not saying that they're not capable of doing that. I'm just saying that is a difference from last season to this year, where you've got to, you have that linchpin, the main guy that was really, in a lot of cases, able to sort of drive that. So now you've got to replace it in probably a variety of different ways with shot makers and creators and that sort of thing. I think that, going back to your point, as far as keeping the buzz going, the report yesterday from Taylor Eldridge about the early season holiday tournament in Orlando and some of the other top tier programs that are, allegedly or reportedly being played that are going to be playing in this tournament. I do think that things like that, it keeps the buzz going. When you can go and play in a holiday tournament, potentially against opponents like Florida and Wake Forest and others, I do think that is important, in kind of the same way that the Shockers played KU and the Shockers played K-State and the Shockers played Missouri, and, being able to keep that buzz going.
You run a risk there too.
You do run a risk, but it does
games.
It does keep the team at the top of the news cycle, the discussions, the conversations, and that sort of thing.
Give me that, though, 10 times out of 10. 10 times out of 10. What doesn't build the buzz is, quick aside, I'm going to ask you a question because this is a genuine question. Yeah. Please, nobody be offended. Is saying Little Sisters of the Poor now something we shouldn't say? Isn't that the old cliche?
I'm the wrong
right?
one. Little Sisters of the Poor.
Isn't that the one? Playing whatever.
Yeah.
Junkyard State isn't going to do much to build the buzz, even if you beat them by 40. So I'd rather play all the hard teams, right? And see what happens. But you do have to pile up wins too. I'll just put it this way. I'm more optimistic about this season than I was last season. Right now on June 4th. I think it's a better collection on paper. Missing Colby Rogers is that X factor. Not having Rogers stinks, but you don't know what those guys like. That happens every year. I guess I'm just baking that in. I think in general, this group is probably a little better fit.
I don't know. I might be the opposite of you, and not that I'm discouraged about this team, but
no, I know.
They don't have Colby Rogers, and I was excited last season because we were finally going to be able to see what he could do, and he delivered in a lot of different cases. So you lose him. I was excited about the newcomers coming out of the transfer portal last year. They didn't really, I don't think for the most part, pan out. Harlan Beverly probably the best out of the ones that did. So. He was good.
Yeah.
But I don't think Bijan Cortez really panned out exactly the way that people expected him to. I don't think Ronnie DeGray really did either. So I was excited about that last year. I'm not sure that
they
right
also
now
didn't have two freshmen. They also didn't have two freshmen.
That's true. We'll see how big of an immediate impact, Pipkin or Williams can make coming in.
I'm an optimist anyway. I want to be excited about it.
I think I was more excited coming into last season because I felt like there was going to be a fresh start and it was going to be really good.
It's Rogers. It's the Rogers thing. And I don't know how you answer that. And we'll see. We'll give him a little while to practice and then we'll ask, has anybody, become that alpha offensively for you? And I think there's some personalities that'll try it. I don't think I think they won't run out of that. So we'll see. Again, we appreciate Paul Mills for jumping on with us. If you want to see anything he had to say, you can go do that on our video stream, which you can find on Facebook, on YouTube, on X. Before we take a break, we want to let you know that comedian Nick Swartzen is coming to Wichita, Century 2 Concert Hall, Sunday, September 29th. You can enter to win a pair of tickets right now by texting the number 20357. Write that number down, 20357. Just text the keyword jokes to that number. You can enter one time a day. This will go through Friday. 10 lucky winners are going to get a pair of tickets to see comedian Nick Swartzen. Just text jokes, JOKES, to 20357. We'll come back. More Sports Daily right after this.
Sometimes people tell us, I don't get it, it's just tea. But let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With more than 25 flavors, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day for half-price cups of tea. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out why we say, drink tea, be happy.
We have more than 25 flavors. Come try them all for free.
All right, welcome back in. Excuse me. Wow. Everybody here's
You okay?
Jacob Albracht on the Castor. So
I'm concerned about you after that.
last week when I was coming, but my voice was trying to come back. So whatever has happened to me in life now, when I get a cold, and I've avoided them for the most part. These last couple of weeks were the first time I've had one since like October. They linger. Only that part, only that part. When I take a deep breath, anytime I now get any cold or whatever, and I take a deep breath, it makes me cough. And I don't know why, or if it has something to do with, I have no idea. But on TV, it's even worse because you're trying to you got to kind of time your breathing and stuff. And I'm just sometimes I'm just hanging on by a thread there. And sometimes they sneak up on you like they just did. So there we go. We've been talking Shocker basketball here off the top. Again, we appreciate Paul Mills for stopping in this morning and expectations and just trying to figure out how to do that. He mentioned they use a lot of computer software this time of year to try and get some gauge of what's out there. And I think that's awesome. I think that's next level. I think that's important. He joked that stupid software put them at 5 wins last year, which, and that's the thing too. You've got to be able to blend that with human reality too. The reality is, 5 wins could have been 9 wins, could have been 10, 12 wins real easy if they finish out games. That's the stuff that you work on now, right? That you can isolate now. I think we can all look at that and say, just take care of the ball a little bit better down the stretch. And I would imagine those are things they are laser focused on. So we'll see. He said there were some of those that put them near the top. And he kind of went through that. If you missed any of that, you can go back and you can listen to it at kfhradio.com. You can go back and you can watch it too on Facebook, on YouTube, on X. We'll try and spend some time this summer just catching up with some of the newsmakers around the area. We get so locked in, kind of starting in September, mid-August, really all the way through May, sort of. And then you get these months. So we're going to try and bring people in and kind of catch up with some folks and have some fun with that as we make our way through. We have the text contest you can get involved in. Again, text jokes to 20357. to win a pair of tickets to see Nick Swardson at Century 2 on September 29th. You can continue to do that. Want to give a shout out to Prairie Fire Coffee for fueling us up. All of our Odyssey family, especially here at KFH, with some great Prairie Fire Coffee. Want to tell you that this portion of the program is brought to you by the Crestview Country Club, where they just finished a member guest. Now, you've played the member guest, right? Like you've done these tournaments. Nobody ever invites me, so I haven't.
It's been a few
I don't know
years.
why.
It was before I had kids, because it ends up being a long and grueling weekend. It's fun. It's been a while though. I wasn't on the show yesterday. I played in a charity golf tournament yesterday. If you're watching the video stream, I got a little sunburnt yesterday. I don't know if that's showing up on the screen or not. It was totally my fault. I had sunscreen with me. I just didn't put it on, and here we go.
Yeah. We've all been there. Is my 21, 25 handicap valuable in those sort of circumstances and settings? It is, right?
In a scramble? No. I mean, it's just.
What about like in a member?
In a member guest, yeah. In a member guest, it would be. They would put your handicap to work, and they try to level the playing field as much as they possibly can. So absolutely, it would come into play.
If anybody wants to borrow my handicap and feed me free beer, I'm available for golf tournaments.
You and I might not be a terrible pairing in those tournaments.
Probably would be pretty good. You're a good golfer.
I don't know if you've heard this.
I'm not bad. I'm just not consistent.
I don't know if you know this term in the golf lexicon, but we could ham and egg it pretty well. You heard that before?
I don't know that term.
We could ham and egg.
Am I the ham or the egg?
Depends on how you're playing that day. You're probably the ham, let's be honest.
Probably not well. I got shots. I can get some shots in me. Like I played the one time recently, and I didn't play bad. I owe you beers on the course anyway. We appreciate Crestview's support. They got all kinds of memberships, fun. Of course, the Wichita Open coming out there here pretty quick.
Next week.
You can give them a call. Check out all their different memberships. I got my kids at swim team right now while I'm here. So all kinds of fun stuff. Give them a call. Tell them we sent you. We appreciate their support. We'll come back hour number 2. We'll open things up. We brought this up yesterday. It begins tonight. The Royals grind over the next 2 weeks is about as brutal as you can get. And we'll talk about that and how dangerous this really is, because it is. That's next on Sports Daily. Coming up, hour number 2. Don't go away.
Sometimes people tell us, I don't get it, it's just tea. But let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With more than 25 flavors, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite, or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day for half-price cups of tea. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out why we say, drink tea, be happy.
have more than 25 flavors. Come try them all for free. We have more than 25 flavors. Come try them all for free.
Now, from Wichita's most listened to sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH. This is Sports Daily with Jacob Albracht and Tommy Castor.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Hour number 2 of Sports Daily here on this Tuesday. Tommy Castor along with Jacob Albracht, Jad Chambers, producing the program. That IHOP hotline is open for you the rest of the way at 869-1240. You can also join our video stream whenever you would like on X, on YouTube, on Facebook. Leave comments right there and join the show. We gave you that opportunity to text in to win the Nick Swardson tickets. We've also got a chance for you to text in and win HTO. And you can do that anytime, Jacob. We've got that running between now and the end of the week.
We'll get you that code word here coming up in this hour. So stay tuned for your opportunity there, too. Love that we can do the texting now for a lot of reasons. One, frees Jad up a little bit, which we always like to do. But two, it lets people that are not able to get on the phone and make a phone call be able to participate in the show and win some of these prizes. So we like to do that as well. Tommy, we'll get into the Royals here. I want to get your thoughts on what everybody seems to be chiming in on with Caitlin Clark and Kennedy Carter in a foul. I am. Oh man. Well, let's sort of start there, and we'll get to the Royals as we make our way through this hour, because it's, now you have Carter talking again. I can't. The WNBA is getting exactly what they need out of this. Like, the amount of overreactions in every different direction here are hilarious to me, and it's exactly what the WNBA needs to get from Caitlin Clark. You need this. Like the WNBA has now been at or near the top of every headline for what are we at about day 5 here? And this is the important thing for what the league hopes to get from the buzz surrounding Caitlin Clark. And people can get their feelings hurt that Caitlin Clark's getting too much of the attention and other people aren't getting it. Like, I don't care about any of that. I think if we're all being real, we know why people are fascinated right now by this. And it's the same reason they were fascinated by Caitlin Clark in college. She has captivated the audience. This happens all the time. You almost never know when it's going to happen. But man, when it happens, you have got to take advantage. And that foul, while unnecessary, was not like I made like we're pretending like Caitlin Clark got stabbed on the court. It was a hip check. It caught her off guard and she fell down. And yes, it was like unnecessary, intentional, and Kennedy Carter needs to be punished for it and all those things. But my goodness, like she wasn't just trying to hurt anybody. This is like it's part of basketball. It's a part of sports. When rookies get pushed around a little bit. I watched a video of Angel Reese get like choked slammed on a rebound. Like this is just rookies getting messed with. But that part aside, like the overreactions aside, and everybody feels like they've got to like take these stands, whatever. This is great for the WNBA, man. Like this is exactly what they need to happen with the buzz surrounding Caitlin Clark. We don't know if that buzz is going to carry over from college basketball into the professional ranks. We have no idea. I think people assume that it will. The ratings are following Caitlin Clark. So you're seeing the carryover and the spillover, and there will be a lot of roles to play. It's a great rookie class, But the attention is coming because the nation became captivated by one particular player. And now, hopefully, all the things come together that the perfect storm brings all the attention in. And then you can maintain some of that. Angel Reese being a bad guy is the perfect thing that could happen in all of this. Like if she will just embrace, and it appears that she is, embrace that role and like chip on my shoulder, I'll show you. It's like, that is perfect storybook stuff that you need to capture these kinds of things and lightning in a bottle. We are spending days talking about this. I don't think that's ever happened before with that particular league, which is trying to grow in and chisel out a larger role into the sports world. Is it perfect? Is it perfect for the WNBA?
It's the top story everywhere that all the talking heads are talking about. We're talking about it right now. But here's the major thing in all of this. I couldn't tell you who won the game when that foul happened with Caitlin Clark.
It's fine.
Couldn't tell you. And that's fine. That's not my point. Is that I would imagine a lot of people don't know what the final score was. They don't know what the standings are. I don't know how many points a game Caitlin Clark is averaging. I couldn't tell you any of that. But what I do know is that I'm more interested now in what's going on. I'm following along a little bit more as far as the drama with Caitlin Clark and then these other players who are fouling her and they're getting physical with her. And then Angel Reese coming out and saying that it's not just Caitlin Clark that is putting the WNBA on the map. It's her as well. And that she should get some credit for the rise of women's college basketball or women's basketball in general. I honestly don't disagree with Angel Reese. I mean, you need a counterpart, you always need like the Joker to a Batman or a Lex Luthor to a Superman. You always need that in everything. And so that's what the Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese dynamic is. They don't like each other from all accounts. They didn't really, I don't think, like each other in college necessarily.
I don't think they did either.
And now they're in the WNBA. And I don't think that people really want to let that go and say goodbye to that just yet. And so that's why it's carried over to
Angel
the
Reese
WNBA.
doesn't.
Angel Reese certainly doesn't.
Angel Reese doesn't
And
want to. I'm
then-
sure Caitlin Clark would love to let
And
her,
I'm sure that you've got these.
doesn't matter.
I'm sure you've got these other probably veteran WNBA players that resent the attention that Caitlin Clark is getting in the league as a rookie. And they're like, we're going to humble her. We're going to put her in her place, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And here we go. And I love it. But again, I couldn't tell you who's winning these games necessarily. I just know that
Doesn't
it's at
matter.
the top of everybody's mind.
when we get these great storylines, you don't know who's winning the game in any league. When Draymond Green, does something stupid on the court, you're not like the outcome of the game itself becomes secondary to it generating the talk and buzz and all of these things that it's generated. The one thing in it I could do without, and I've never made any secret about that. Like I could do without the virtue signaling. Like I don't need a lecture that I haven't watched a lot of WNBA over the years.
Right.
Like who is anybody to tell anybody what they need to be watching or talking about? Like we all have a certain amount of time in our lives that we devote to whatever it is that we do. Like, don't tell me what I need to be watching or not watching or anything else. Like, don't force it. Don't shove it down my throat. Let me come to it naturally. That's and the reality is, again, it's always megaphones amplifying, I don't think, what's the reality a lot of the time when you see this stuff. And there was a lot of virtue signaling yesterday. Well, now you're paying attention and you should have been paying attention forever. And it's like, no, stop with all that. We weren't. Okay. You can say, like, it doesn't matter. People were not. And now they are. Embrace that and the things that are making it interesting. What's making it interesting from the outside, there is nothing that will happen. Just same problem for me, let's say, with the NBA. I have the same problem in the NBA. I don't have time to watch all the games. Now we're into the postseason. I'm going to watch the games. WNBA. I've watched a whole lot more postseason than I have regular season. There's probably nothing, Tommy, that is going to make me all of a sudden become a nightly viewer of the WNBA. But what will make me generally interested in this league? And it's the same way with the NBA for me, as I've had to shift attention mostly now to football and to college basketball and to baseball, and the things that I follow for a living or at least have time for are just awesome storylines like this. And this is an awesome storyline. Hard foul against, everybody's golden child here. And you've got villains and you've got heroes and you've got anti-heroes and you've got drama and you've got people talking about it and that's what you want and need out of all this. And that's what so far the WNBA is getting. Caitlin Clark has not played particularly well in a lot of games and her team sucks. So yet we're still consuming that. That's what the WNBA needs. And what you hope is all the buzz now, the people that are kind of paying attention for that reason are like, man, that was a hard foul. Like they play hard. Like, that's and then naturally you keep some. I would also contend the biggest growth for this league is going to be the people that weren't watching anything, right? All these people that came to college basketball last year. It's a lot of people that were not, like, it's not like they switched. They weren't watching anything. I think that's the most room for the WNBA's growth, which is really cool and promising. And, I think it's all great, but give me more of this drama, man. I can't get enough of it. Don't lecture me. Just let me have the fun with the storylines here. We've got villains. We've got heroes. Everybody's playing their part, and this has been fantastic.
The other benefit, I think, to the WNBA right now is the fact that the NBA finals don't start until Thursday. So you've had this gap because, the conference finals both ending when they did. So now you've got a period of time, and you've had it for the last several days where what other basketball are you going to get if you really want to watch it? So you don't really have a choice but to lock in if you really want to watch basketball to the WNBA and Caitlin Clark and everything like that. So that'll, probably change a little bit once the finals begin on Thursday, but at least for the next couple of days, you've got that opportunity to really own that landscape, that basketball landscape nationally. And I think that they've absolutely been able to use that to their benefit.
It is. And again, I don't even know how much this stuff competes with one another. I don't know. I don't think any of us know that yet. And look, the other thing is too, like, as far as that play in particular, I don't think that other players are jealous of Caitlin Clark. I think that they're trying to put a rookie in her place like they would a lot of rookies. And I don't think this is any different than we see across the sports landscape. Like, you got to grow into this league. And the reality is, and Caitlin Clark she's going to have a growing curve to go to this league. She just is. Like, it's a more physical league. It's just like what happens in the NBA, just like what happens in the NFL, right? Like, there is a physical component to playing professionals that you've got to overcome, and she's working through that. Just in the last handful of games, we've seen her have her best game. We've seen her have her worst game. She's still turning the ball over too much in every game, and she's got to be able to be fearless and play her game and know that she can, or it'll never work. I think it's great. I love that we're paying attention to the drama here. I think that's organic. I think that that's natural. Nobody needs a lecture on one way or the other. Let us all just take it in and have our thoughts on it. Like, don't get so upset when somebody says something. We're all watching the same thing. That's what makes it fun. And again, you never know when this is going to happen either. We didn't know Steph Curry was going to captivate the NBA the way he did. He didn't have to be the best player that's ever played basketball to do that. He's not. He's not even close. He's the best shooter we've ever seen. Maybe Caitlin Clark is that. I mean, she's not even close to that yet. So let's let her become the player she's going to become and enjoy the captivation that's happened. I mean, think about it across, like, Tiger Woods captivated the world. Did we know before, when he was playing his first tournament or two that was going to happen? No, but you got to embrace it when it does, and you've got to let it do its thing and become a monster. Johnny Manziel. Tom, do we know Johnny Manziel was going to captivate? Have we had a college football player that has captivated us the way Johnny Manziel did since Johnny Manziel? I don't think that we have. And so you never know where it's going to come from or when it's going to happen.
You probably, I'm trying to think of college basketball. Probably Zion was probably the last time that happened.
Yep. It was Zion. Yep. Where we're just kind of watching. And again, it can come out of nowhere. I mean, we got it a little bit with what's the Indiana State guy this year, like late in the year.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Kareem
Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah. He captivated us, but it happened like that. And then they didn't put him in the tournament. Doofuses. Like what are we doing here? So again, you got to just embrace it while it happens, because it could go away in a second. You have to capture the moment. And I think they're doing a really good job of that. And I think these other players being hard on Caitlin Clark will enhance that to some degree. And so we'll just, we'll just keep watching it and just keep wondering. But I wanted to get your thoughts on that. So that's cool out there. The other thing that's happened, we didn't spend enough time on this yesterday, and Royals fans, we'll get to the Royals in the next segment, promise. K-State baseball. How about that? First time since 2013. Second time ever they're on to the Super Regionals. Can we please get a team from the state of Kansas in the College World Series? Can we just have that? Can we just enjoy that? Whether it's softball, whether it's baseball, whatever it is, that would be awesome. And I really, really hope K-State can get it done. I don't think we know yet, by the way. We'll find out at some point today, I believe, whether they play Friday or Saturday. But they got to play 3 games or best of 3 against Virginia, who's really good. But that has been a wild story to watch, too.
Yeah, it was a grind for them to get out of the Fayetteville Regional. I mean, with all the weather issues
they went
and all
3-0.
of that. They did go 3-0. I mean, they played great, but it was a grind. I mean, there was I think the opening game took 2 days to finish because of the weather and all of the issues that they had over the weekend. And really, I think solid pitching, clutch pitching performances when the Wildcats needed it the most. And credit goes to Pete Hughes for, being able to, get that team not only to the postseason, but then to get out of the regional when you are, traveling to Fayetteville, you're taking on the Arkansas team that hosts that regional and being able to beat them and then move on to the Super Regional. I mean, they're the closest, and I don't know off the top of my head. I haven't really looked at this in a long time. I mean, when was the last time that a school from the state of Kansas even made a Super Regional? I mean, you're talking about the College World Series. I feel like it's been a while,
long time
since they've even been to a Super Regional.
I got here in 2014, and I don't think, and I got here in June of 2014. Now, I got here in mid-June, so I may have been just after the College World Series. I can't, off the top of my head, remember that we've had one since I've been here.
That'd be a great trivia question, and I would imagine it's probably a Gene Stevenson Wichita State team. I would think that'd be my guess.
I think,
but I mean, I'd love. I mean, that's a good. I'd love.
That's right.
Maybe I need to do some research and figure out when was the last team from the state of Kansas in a Super Regional in college baseball.
Let's look. I don't think, has Kansas made it? You'll know more about that than I will.
I don't think not. Yeah, not anytime recently. I don't believe.
Let's see if there's yeah, we get a little Wikipedia deal here that'll pull that right up for us. All right, let's see. So The Manhattan Regional was 2013. I think, according to the internet, that the last time the Shockers were at a super regional was 2008, from what I could tell. The year before that, they hosted the super regional. And then they made a regional in 2013, but not a super regional. Right. So, I mean, look, it's
so yeah, I mean, Kansas State, they were in the super regional in 2013. So that I'm guessing that was the last one.
I think it was too. And so that's been a long time. We're talking 11 years now. Let's go. Let's get now to the College World Series because it's been even longer for that. So let's go. Let's get there. Get them K-State.
KU made a regional in 2014, but they did not make it to the super regional. So yeah,
I thought that's where we were.
It would have been Kansas State.
So here we go. We'll take another crack at it. Virginia's going to be tough. They're number 12 for a reason. They're always good. And K-State's going to take a swing at them. You just hope the time off doesn't kill that momentum that they've had and they've built up. You never know. That's what makes College World Series fun, man. You get these outliers in there. Not that K-State wasn't good this year. They obviously were to make the tournament, but I don't think a lot of people had them this far. And we'll see if they can continue it. All right. When we come back, Royals fans, have you been looking at just how badly this could go? Not saying it will, but your next 4 series are against division leaders right now.
Didn't you call yourself an optimist just a few minutes ago on this show?
I'll tell you how I think they'll go in this stretch of games, but we have been looking at June 1st as like an evaluation date, and I think it is a good one. But man, June 20th. Let's look at these next 4 series. Michael Walker's down. We'll give you what we think needs to happen, what we think will happen when we return on Sports Daily. It's Albracht and Castor. Don't go away.
Sometimes people tell us, I don't get it, it's just tea. But let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With more than 25 flavors, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day for half-price cups of tea. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out why we say, drink tea, be happy.
have more than 25 flavors. Come try them all for free.
All right, let's do our second text giveaway of the show here today. The number 20357. If you want to win some HTO, we will get you hooked up. Iced tea, coffee, got you covered. More than 25 flavors to choose from. All the different kinds of coffee drinks, fancy, black, whatever you want. It's all on there. Iced, hot. You can enter the contest by texting the keyword T to short code 20357. That's TEA. You can enter once per day. Good luck, everybody. 20357, just text the keyword TEA, and you can enter to win that contest. We welcome back in to Sports Daily on a Tuesday. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. First time in a while, Tommy, we have not hit on the Royals until this late in the show. Paul Mills joined us in the first hour. One big reason why, you can go back and listen to that interview on our video stream. I guess you can watch it on our video stream or listen to it. Facebook, YouTube, X, also kfhradio.com. Tommy, the stretch of games for the Royals is alarming. We had looked to June 1st as sort of a trade spot, like here's when they need to be starting to make moves. Now we look at it in the sense that they're 4 games back coming into their first series against the Guardians. You only now get 12 games, I think, versus the old 19 you would get in division. So it's a significant amount less, which amplifies the importance of these games. In the very short term, you come in 4 games back. I don't think you can come out of this series any worse than 5 games back. You'd like to come out of it 1 game back. 3 games back, I think you would take as a win, because then after the Cleveland series, you get Seattle, you get the Yankees, you get the Dodgers. Seattle, maybe the most talented starting rotation in baseball, at least in the conversation. Yankees, baseball's best team and is red hot right now. And the Dodgers, baseball's probably most talented overall team, at least lineup. That's what's looming after the Guardians. By the way, all 4 of your next opponents are the current division leaders that they're in. This is going to be tough. And for the Royals, when you look at it at 4 games back, what's a number we could put here? Because I don't think you can look at that stretch of games, Tommy, and responsibly say they need to be any better than 500, because that is an optimistic look at it for sure.
Yeah, I think that is, I think, a fair expectation, that you come out of that, knowing
And
the
it's 13
talent.
games, so you can't go 500.
Yeah,
But you know what I mean.
knowing the talent that the Royals, obviously have, and the way that they play baseball, the lion's share of this season, I do think that that's an appropriate expectation for them. If we're talking about where should they be in the divisional race against
Yeah,
Cleveland, that becomes more difficult because then you also have to look at what Cleveland's schedule is after this series with the
it's not
Royals.
good.
They
I
play
mean, it's it's
three
it's far
they
easier.
play three
Yeah.
last place teams in their
Yep.
next three series after the Royals. They play the Marlins, who are terrible, the Reds, who have young talent, but they have not won games, and they play the Blue Jays, who are 3 games under 500 in the American League East. So you're playing three opponents who are in last place in their respective divisions after this 3 game set with the Royals. So that again makes it even more difficult for Kansas City to keep pace in the divisional race. So I think that it's absolutely not overstating it when you say that this series with Cleveland at Cleveland is by far the most important 3 game set that Kansas City has had in this young season so far.
I mean, just even if you simply look at it and that they finally get to play Cleveland, it is. If you think that, and I think it'll be a pretty tight 3-team race, and I think Minnesota's going to be there, and they played a lot of games against Minnesota already. You just like, we have to remember they don't play these teams head to head as much as they used to. So if it goes one way or the other, it's going to have a bigger impact probably on the division overall late in the season. I worry because you're 4 games back, and because you brought up the good point. Cleveland doesn't play anybody. So in the division race, I think if you can be within 6, you feel pretty good about it. At the end of this stretch, if you can go 6-7, 7-6 over those 13 games and be within 6 games, I know that sounds horrible. Right? You're like, oh God, like they're going to be 6 games back on, what date would that be? June 17th. But I think you take that as a win right now.
Well, I mean, yeah, because the alternative is you could end up a heck of a lot worse than that
They could be
by the
12
time it
games
turns
back.
around.
I mean, they really could.
I think the other thing that is important to understand is that all really good teams, including World Series winners, all go through rough patches in their season in which they've won a championship. It happens all the time. Your Rangers a year ago lost 8 in a row in the month of August. My Braves in 2021, they were under 500 in the month of August. If you go all the way back to the last time that the Royals won the World Series in 2015, there was a stretch right around this same time, late May, early June, where that Royals team that ended up winning the World Series lost 9 of 11. And so there are absolutely, I think you can give a little bit of grace with this, but at the same time, while I'm willing to do that, and while I'm willing to, say, okay, look, this is still a really good baseball team. They're not perfect. They have flaws. They have places that they need to improve upon. There's no doubt about that. And this is a really difficult stretch of baseball for them, and a really important stretch of baseball. I'm not willing to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm not willing to, panic and get all frantic about this yet, because I do think that from what we've seen from this team, even in a lot of their losses, they did this over the weekend. They played a full 9 innings of baseball. I mean, they came back in the 9th inning on, what was that, Sunday against the Padres. They didn't win the game, but it's not a team that you can count out at any point. It's not a team that's going to just roll over. And so I think that should give everybody some hope. I think a little bit of optimism
Yeah.
that they can get through this stretch and battle their way through this.
Okay, so here is, timing is everything, right? If we want the Royals to be aggressive, to be buyers, which we both do, it's going to be harder for the front office, I think, to justify that if they're 12 games by,
I don't think that it will be, because I mean, I was looking at this the other day.
I hope not.
And
but,
JJ
but it'll
Picollo,
be a hell of a lot harder than if they're 4 games back.
JJ Picollo was active at the trade deadline last year and before the trade deadline. Now they were sellers because they were bad, but I mean, even James MacArthur, who has turned into an important, I would say still important bullpen piece for the Royals, JJ Picollo acquired him in the month of May of last year. So, Piccolo, it doesn't seem to me, is the kind of general manager to sit on his hands. And even if you are 9, 10 games back, at this point in the season, that can still be turned around. And keep in mind, even if they do, and let's just say worst case scenario ends up after this, next 3-week stretch, they end up double-digit games back, you're still probably looking at a wild card team, right? You're looking at a team that could still find their way back in the divisional race, but absolutely still a wild card team and battling for that wild card spot. So it's not a throw in the towel type situation from JJ Piccolo. I do think that he would still be absolutely willing to be a buyer in that situation.
I'm gonna give you a trade scenario. We're just spitting, we're just chewing the fat here. Let's say there was a world where the Royals could get either a Vladimir Guerrero Jr. or Pete Alonso, but it would cost them Vinny Pasquantino. I would tell you that even on a rental basis, I would support that move. But if they're far back in the division, they're not going to make a move like that. They got to be within striking distance to make a move like that. And I'm just afraid that if this couple of weeks spirals a little bit, they'll be more shy to make that sort of a splash move at the deadline this year.
I don't think they need to make that. I mean, even if you're a few games back at Cleveland, I'm not sure I would be in support of that move. I mean, I do think that Vinny Pasquantino
it's growing on
can provide
it's
you. Well, he's going to be able to provide you value long term. Now he's not a superstar like a Pete Alonso or even a Vlad Jr. And I know Vlad has struggled this year, but he doesn't have that superstar mentality outside of Kansas City. Like that's not really the way that Pasquantino plays. But I do think that the value that you get from him long-term is extremely important for Kansas City. So I'm not sure that I would be in support of that move. I think the only way, in my opinion, would be if you knew that that was the only thing that you needed. And the needs for Kansas City are not that. I don't think that's the need for Kansas City. We know what the needs are. And we're not the only ones saying this. I've read beat writer after beat writer after beat writer, and even national writers who are starting to pay attention to the Royals are saying this team needs a corner outfield bat and bullpen reinforcements. Sure. And 100%. I'm sorry, Vlad Guerrero Jr. and Pete Alonso are neither one of those things.
No, so I don't think that you can understand that.
I don't think that if you're JJ Piccolo, you can start to get distracted on the shiny things. And there are always going to be shiny things that hit the market. There are always going to be players that you look at and you're like, wow, like that team is offering that player up on the market. Oh, maybe we can go out and get. I don't think you can get distracted by the shiny things. You have to stay the course. And if you're going to be buyers, regardless if you're 6 games back or 12 games back, you have to stay the course and go after the positions of true, actual need that the Royals have.
You got to make upgrades. And the other reason I bring up Pasquantino, and let's just dive into this because I've been thinking about this. I like Pasquantino as much as the next guy as far as a personality. But when you really dig in, he's not much better than a league average first baseman offensively. Salvador Perez is going to need a place to play when he gets a little older. He's not going to be able to catch every day. My point is, if you've got a chance to strike while the iron's hot, you can upgrade from Vinny Pasquantino, which upgrades the offense. If you project it out, Pasquantino is a 244 hitter. In 2023, before he was hurt last year, he was a 247 hitter. Okay, so maybe that's the bottom end, but we're seeing a whole lot of results now over his last 108 games, over his last 430 at bats. He's about a 245 hitter. He's got a power that projects out to about 20 home runs a year and about 75 RBIs. That's a league average first baseman. Okay, I want him to be good because I love the personality and the character that he is, that he brings to the table. But is he some untouchable piece? I don't think that he is. And the other part of that is I think Salvador Perez, again, needs a place to play as he gets a little older, first base. So if you were able to, in the short term, make a run and upgrade to a player like Pete Alonso, right? I think that I am coming around to the idea of splashing that way this year. But you can't do that if you're way out of the race, even if you project yourself to get back into, it's too risky. Then it doesn't make as much sense. So that's what I'm saying. And yes, of course they need a corner outfield bat way more than they need a first baseman. But if you have a chance to upgrade the offense to an all-star level player, I think I might be on board with it. They have other needs. And that's not the only move they would need to make. They need to prioritize a bullpen piece for sure. I think that's becoming the biggest concern, by the way. I think it's beginning to overtake the need for an outfield bat, quite frankly. But you still got to be able to look for those things. You don't make one move, you make 3 or 4 moves. What I'm saying is on the timing of the schedule, if they're way back, it's going to be harder to justify that if you're the front office and say, what are the chances we get there? Because if you make those moves and don't reach the postseason, now it's a failure. And I think you have to weigh that risk. You have to. And so, if they can get through this stretch and they're hanging in there, then I think you're fine. But if it falls back, it will be harder to make some of those trades. I don't see how it wouldn't if you're way back in the standings on June 17th. I mean, it would have to.
Okay, so I found this stat about Vinny Pasquantino that I think that's interesting. Now we know that Vinny has dealt with injuries and he was out for a good portion of last year and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But and this, this was earlier in the month of May when this comparison was put together because Pasquantino finally hit this mark. So he's now played a full season worth of MLB games in his career. So he's now over that, but earlier in the month of May, he had played 162 career games. Batting average, 261, 23 home runs, 66 RBIs, 76 walks, 77 strikeouts. Freddie Freeman, in his very first 162 games, batting average of 290, so it's a higher average, 20 home runs, 72 RBIs. So Pasquantino, through his first 162 games in Major League Baseball, more home runs, more RBIs, more walks, 30 more walks in his first 162 games than Freddie Freeman
walks
did
have always been his greatest
when
attribute.
he broke into Major League Baseball. And a lot fewer strikeouts. 77 strikeouts for Pasquantino, 137 for Freeman. This was in
How old was he?
This was 2010 when Freddie Freeman broke in. So let me look at
that mark.
How old? 2010 to 2011 was when he hit that mark. He would have been
21 years old, 22 years old.
Yeah.
Right?
No, he would have been 22. Would have been 22 when he hit that mark.
Pasquantino's 26. Pasquantino is at the age hitters typically are in their prime. There's a difference there, I think.
We're talking about significantly fewer walks, significantly fewer strikeouts.
Yeah.
Better play discipline.
This isn't a dog on Pasquantino idea for me. I love his plate discipline. This is a first base of the future. Salvador Perez plays a role in that. Pasquantino right now at 26 years old is hitting league average in the power spots, which matter from first base. I like Vinny Pasquantino. I think there's an opportunity there to, if you're in a good position, to make a big splash. And I think he's a player that is probably more expendable than as fans we would like him to be.
Will
I like him.
Will a guy like Pete Alonso, move the needle from a power perspective? Absolutely. Will it get the fans excited? Sure. I mean, there's a trade-off because you're losing Pasquantino if that ends up happening. But look, that would be like, gosh, I don't know, 4th on my list of what I would want JJ Piccolo to do as he's working the phones to make trades. It'd be way down on my list. And I don't want to potentially have to give up value for a trade like that. And that ends up sacrificing what you can do with the bullpen, with the corner outfield bat, with those actual needs that are there, because you're going to have to give up value to take care of the needs that you actually have. And if you get distracted and you go for the flashy item, you go for the big splash, well, then you've lost your bargaining chips to be able to go and do the things that you actually need to get done. I don't think I would be on board with any kind of move like that.
It depends. I mean, it's all relative. How much money do the Mets pick up? Will they throw in a bullpen piece? I mean, there are a lot of things that go along with that. It's just, again, I'd like the Royals to be in a position to think about it. I don't want anybody to think I like Vinny Pasquantino. I think he's a future piece. I like what he brings to the table. His plate discipline is fantastic, but he's 26 years old and he's not hitting for a lot of power. He's batting .244 now for his last basically full season. If you put half of last year and half of this year together, there are things that are concerning to me. And he was white hot out of the gates. And I hope he turns it around because I think he's one of the more fun players in Major League Baseball. And I'd like to see him be a part of the franchise. But I'd also like the Royals to be in a position to be flexible and at least think about certain things. And this stretch of games is going to make that really interesting. One more time on our text giveaway for this hour, 20357. You can text the keyword TEA to win some HTO. Again, that's 20357. Good luck on that. We'll come back. We'll continue the Royals conversation next.
Sometimes people tell us, I don't get it, it's just tea. But let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With more than 25 flavors, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day for half-price cups of tea. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out why we say drink tea, be happy.
We have more than 25 flavors. Come try them all for free.
welcome back in, everybody. So we're talking Royals here. Tonight's matchup, Seth Lugo, Tristan McKenzie. Got to have Lugo tonight. I know we keep putting the pressure on him, but it comes with the territory. Got to have it. Got to have it when it's Lugo on the mound, Tommy.
Yeah, can I tell you right now, I actually really, really like the Royals on the money line. They're getting pretty close to even money. It's slight underdogs. I'm seeing it at like plus 105. So you're getting pretty much even money, but on the road, a short underdog with Seth Lugo and a game one that I'm sure that the Royals feel like they have to get with Lugo on the bump. Give me the Royals on the money line all day.
Yeah. We've been hammering anytime Lugo gets plus money, and I don't know how it keeps happening, but it does. We've been hammering it, and it has been fruitful. So we'll do it again. I hadn't checked that yet, so I'm glad you have. I'm going to get on that right now as well. We'll get a little. I'll always take Lugo on the money line, but if you can get this one, it's not going to get worse, right, than 5 games. But you feel like you're in more of a position of power. Then you can sort of flip that script on Cleveland a little bit. Now they're like, oh God, we can't, now we can't get to 1 game. We can't let them get within 1 game. It'd be really nice to flip that pressure a little bit on them, which emphasizes the urgency here. If they don't win tonight, it feels like they'll just remain sort of in like defense mode, right? Stop the bleeding. Like we got to stop. The Royals are the best. This young, hotshot team, they need to be playing from a position of confidence. So I'm with you. Tonight is crucial, and I had not seen that he's plus money. So we're gonna take Lugo with plus money anytime we can get Lugo with plus money, and good luck to everybody on their bets. I
also kind of like the under, by the way, in this game. It's 8.5. Kind of like the under because
McKenzie's a wild card
because Lugo is not giving up runs. I mean, his ERA is under 2. And so then I think the question becomes, okay, is McKenzie going to give up a bunch of runs to the Royals offense? And maybe he will. But I do kind of like that under in this matchup. I don't know. My gut tells me you're probably looking at a 4-1 or 4-2 ball game when it's all said and done with Lugo and McKenzie pitching. And then the other wild card is, of course, the Royals bullpen and what, things look like for them.
The bullpen is why I will never bet a Royals under.
Hey,
now.
The best case scenario is that Lugo pitches far enough into the game where the bullpen isn't even a factor.
I hope so. But it has been lately too much. They got to get the bullpen short up. And I'm pretty certain now, Tommy, that I don't think that's coming internally. They're going to need to find somebody. And I know that gets expensive. And I know they don't really have a lot of pieces to trade out. I don't know how they'll do it. I don't know if maybe there's a big contract they could eat some money on, but I would say act now and not later. And the price will be lower than it would be later, probably. That game, by the way, you will hear with us here on KFH tonight. Coverage begins at 5:30. They play early weird game times out in Cleveland. They're sort of the pioneers on that. So 5:30 coverage begins on that tonight. Seth Lugo on the mound in as big a regular season game as we've seen from the Royals in a long, long time. I'm jacked up for it. We'll come back. We'll tell you what else is on the network when we return on Sports Daily.
Sometimes people tell us, I don't get it, it's just tea. But let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With more than 25 flavors, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day for half-price cups of tea. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out why we say drink tea, be happy.
have more than 25 flavors. Come try them all for free. We have more than 25 flavors.
All right, so Royals in. Tommy, I went like 3 units on Seth Lugo. So come on, Lugo. Let's get this done. Let's get it done. You've got Jim Rome next on the Infinity Sports Network from 11 to 2. Then Bob and Jeff take you locally up until Zach Gelb for about an hour and a half. And then that Royals game goes at 5:30. You'll have more chances to win Nick Swartzen tickets and HDO tomorrow through a text contest. You can go back and watch the interview with Paul Mills, listen to the interview with Paul Mills, kfhradio.com, and on our video stream. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. For Jad, for Tommy, I'm Jacob. We'll see you tomorrow.